he deleted her messages for 4 years. Then his company collapsed and he sent one more. The email came on a Thursday morning. Cold Reckoning presents, he deleted her messages for 4 years. Then his company collapsed and he sent one more. She almost didn't open it. The name in the sender field was one she hadn't seen in 4 years, and had spent 3 of those years trying to forget. Daniel Marsh, the man who had watched her fail in public and said nothing, who had received her emails, she had the red receipts, and chosen not to reply, who had told mutual friends she wasn't serious enough about the industry, who had, on one specific occasion she would never forget, looked through her at a conference in Billings like she was furniture. She stared at his name in her inbox for a long moment. Then she opened it. Subject line, reaching out, hoping we can connect. First sentence, I've been following your work, and I think there could be a real opportunity here. He needed a job. And he had come to her. Missoula, Montana, sits in a valley ringed by mountains so large they make ambition feel small. That's exactly why she had come here 4 years earlier, to build something without an audience. Her name was Nora Quinn. She had arrived in Missoula with a truck, a laptop, $11,000 in savings, and an idea that everyone she had ever pitched it to had found unconvincing. Everyone including Daniel Marsh, who had been for 3 years the most connected person in her professional network. They had met at an agricultural technology conference in Helena. He was a keynote speaker. She was an attendee with a business plan printed on paper because she couldn't afford a deck designer. He had looked at her plan for 4 minutes. Then he had handed it back and said 3 words that she wrote down that night in her journal. Not enough here. She thanked him, left the conference, drove 3 hours back to Missoula in the dark, and rewrote the entire plan from the beginning. That was the last conversation they ever had. Until Thursday morning. Subscribe to Cold Reckoning right now. Because what Nora built in those 4 years of silence is the only reason this story exists. The idea was specific. Montana had a problem that nobody in agricultural technology had bothered to solve properly. Small and mid-size ranchers, the ones who had been on the same land for 3 or 4 generations, were losing ground to large agricultural corporations. Not because of bad ranching, but because of bad data. They couldn't access the same predictive modeling tools the corporations used. Soil analysis, weather pattern integration, livestock health forecasting. All of it existed, but at price points that assumed a 1,000-acre operation. Nora had grown up on a 280-acre ranch outside of Dillon. She knew exactly what this problem cost. She built the solution, not quickly, not smoothly, not with funding or mentors or a network that returned her calls. Month 4, her first version didn't work. She rebuilt it. Month 9, she got her first rancher to trial it, free. He used it for 6 weeks, then paid for a full year in advance without being asked. Month 14, 3 more ranchers. Word traveled the way it travels in Montana. Slowly, through people who don't recommend things unless they're certain. Month 20, she had 17 clients. Revenue, $340,000 annualized. Staff, 2 people, both from Missoula, both who had believed in her before she had numbers to show. Month 26, an agricultural technology publication ran a feature on her, the woman rebuilding Montana agriculture from a valley in Missoula. The piece was read by 40,000 people, including, apparently, Daniel Marsh, whose company, a mid-size agricultural consulting firm based in Bozeman, had lost 3 of its largest clients in the preceding 8 months to competitors using tools very similar to hers. He had not built, he had not adapted. He had continued to sell the same consulting frameworks he had been selling for 7 years, and the industry had moved on. Have you ever watched someone realize too late that they dismissed the wrong person? Drop it in the comments. She read his email twice. It was well written, careful, strategically warm, the kind of warmth that takes effort to produce. He mentioned her Missoula operation specifically, called it exactly the kind of infrastructure he had been hoping to align with. He said he had always believed in the core of what she was trying to do. She read that sentence 3 times. He had always believed. The man who had handed back her plan in Helena with "not enough here." The man who had received 4 emails from her in the 18 months after that conference. She knew he had received them. The red receipts were still in her outbox. The first had been a genuine ask for a 15-minute call. The second had been a follow-up. The third had been a brief update on her early progress. She had still believed at that point that people who dismissed you early deserved to see what they had missed. The fourth had been sent on a Tuesday night after her first client signed. She had been so excited she had written it before she could stop herself. No reply to any of them. And now he had always believed. She closed the email, opened her calendar, looked at Thursday afternoon. She had a 2-hour block free. She thought for a long moment. Then she sent one reply. It said, "Happy to talk. Thursday 2 p.m. Here's a video link." That was all. She did not ask what he wanted. She already knew. She did not offer anything. She wanted to hear him ask. Thursday 2 p.m. Daniel Marsh appeared on her screen from what looked like a home office. He was well presented, but there was something behind his eyes that Nora recognized. She had seen it in her own reflection during the difficult months, the specific exhaustion of someone who has been maintaining confidence in a situation that no longer justifies it. He opened with pleasantries. She let him have 2 minutes of pleasantries. Then she said, "What are you looking for, Daniel?" He told her. He framed it as a partnership, a collaboration, his client relationships combined with her technology infrastructure. He was careful not to say the word job, but the structure of what he was describing was a job, a senior role, using her platform. She listened to the entire pitch without interrupting. When he finished, she asked one question. "Do you remember the conference in Helena?" He paused, said, "Of course." She said, "Do you remember what you said about my plan?" Another pause, longer. He said, "I think I may have been dismissive. I didn't fully understand what you were building." She said, "No, you didn't." Silence on the call. The kind of silence that, in Missoula in November, feels as large as the mountains outside her window. She said, "I'm going to be honest with you. We're not in a position to bring on senior hires right now. We're growing, but carefully. What I would offer is a 6-month consulting contract, project basis. If it works for both of us, we can revisit." It was not what he had come for. It was a fraction of what he had come for. He said he would think about it. She said, "Of course, let me know by end of week." He called back Friday morning. He said yes. Subscribe to Cold Reckoning and share this with someone who is building something right now that the wrong people dismissed. The contract lasted 4 months before both parties ended it by mutual agreement. His working style and hers were, as she had suspected they might be, fundamentally incompatible. He was used to telling clients what to do. She was used to listening to ranchers describe problems that had been building for a decade and building solutions around what she heard. They were different kinds of minds. Neither was wrong, they simply didn't fit. He went back to consulting independently, rebuilt slowly with a narrower focus, smaller clients, more specific work. It suited him better. And Nora? By the end of that year, her platform had 41 clients across 4 Montana counties. She had been invited to speak at the same agricultural technology conference in Helena, not as an attendee, as a keynote speaker. She stood at the same podium Daniel Marsh had stood at 4 years earlier. She did not mention him, not once. She talked about building in isolation, about the specific discipline required to work without validation in a valley surrounded by mountains that make ambition feel small. She said, "The best thing that ever happened to my business was every person who decided I wasn't worth their time." She paused. "Let it land, because every one of them gave me the same gift, the absolute privacy to build without anyone watching." The room was quiet for a moment. Then it wasn't. That is Cold Reckoning. New story tomorrow. Subscribe, and never miss the moment the room finally listens. He never replied for 4 years. Then he needed something. She gave him less than he asked for, and built the rest without him.